So good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending. Councillor Mike Adams, I'm the chair of the committee. I'd like to welcome you all to the meeting of the Place Select, and it's been broadcast live and recorded for publication. First of all, agenda item 1 is to appoint a vice chairman. To note the appointment of vice chairman. Thank you. That's already been done, isn't it?
It has been done.
I was trying to get a bit of extra power, obviously, just for today. So to note the appointment of full council on 27th February 2025 of Councillor Jim Creamer as vice chairman. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks for your attendance to the pre-meetings and all that so far.
Yeah.
It's been nice to have you on there. Place Select Committee for the remainder of the 2024 to 25 municipal year. So straight on to agenda item 2, which is the minutes. If I can ask the committee to approve the minutes of the last meeting, please. Show of hands would be wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. That is unanimous. You need me to sign the minutes for you. Yeah, okay, we'll do that. Wonderful. I'm doing great, aren't I? And over to you for apology of absence, please, Dom.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Tom Smith is substituting for Councillor Richard Butler, who sends apologies under the category of the County Council business. Councillor Elizabeth Williamson sends apologies under the category medical reasons. Councillor Kane Oliver sends apologies under the category other reasons. And Councillor Tom Hollis sends apologies under the category other reasons. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So on to agenda item 4, which is declarations of interest. If any councillor or officer has an interest in any matter on the agenda, if you could declare it now, please raise your hand. And if you have an interest to declare, you should state what type of interest it is and give us any detail. No? Okay, wonderful. It's going incredibly well so far. So on to agenda item 5, which is the Public Rights of Way Committee. If I can invite Gary Wood to start us on that, please.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think, Martin, are you going to drive the slides?
Yes, Richard, do you want to start the presentation now? Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Just as way of a background, obviously we set out in the report some of the background information. So we've got on land as well. Just go on to the next slide, please, Martin. So we've got 4,000 paths in the county. So that equates to sort of 3,000 kilometres of public rights of way. So I'm sure you all know, but public rights of way, footpaths, bridleways, and something called byways. Perhaps byways aren't so commonly known. So these are sort of old unsurfaced carriageways, and some of them still carry a vehicular rights as well. So road legal vehicles can pass and repass on those. All rights of way are still highways. You know, they're in the same classification as the ordinary road network, and we share a lot of the same legislation as well. From our side, on the legal side, as I alluded to, we do definitive map modification orders. So these are the claims of public rights of way. We can also amend this definitive map and statement. So this is a legal document which we manage and maintain at the County Council, and that records all the public rights of way in the county. The next slide, please, Martin. Something else that we're responsible for is open access. So this includes registered common land. So there's lots of parcels of common land. There's some very small bits, which are the old pinfolds in the county, to sort of quite large areas of common land around Sutton-on-Trent and in that area. So all that land, that registered common land, is what we call open access land. This came about back in 2000 with a change in legislation, and that allows members of the public to sort of roam. There was a term called right to roam, which isn't particularly helpful, but members of the public can walk anywhere they want in theory on registered common land, but also there's something else called open country. And we have a few parcels in the county, so including little spots of heathland around Clumber Park. There's a few little bits around Mansfield as well, unlike something like the Peak District where you have large expanse of moorland, and members of the public can sort of roam and walk around those as well. Next slide, Martin, please. Rights of way management plan. So as you've seen in the report, this is our strategic report, our strategic plan. It links very closely with the Nottinghamshire plan and also the local transport plan as well. So back in 2007, as part of the legislation in 2000, we had to prepare and publish our first rights of way improvement plan. So there's 6 key aims around this, and I'd just like to very sort of quickly go through a couple of the aims. Next slide, please, Martin. Thank you. So aim 1 is to protect and maintain and enhance the network. So I've got a slide there. It's showing an urban path, which is tarmac. So rights of way, as I'm sure you all know, come in many shapes and sizes. Different types of rights of way throughout the whole of the county. So some in very rural areas in the northeast of the county, to rights of way, you know, typically jitty paths in places like Carlton, Mansfield, Worksop, and Newark as well. So they're used not only for recreational, and obviously people go out and walk and they ride and they cycle, but we also use them for utility purposes. So particularly those in, you know, the sort of built up, heavily populated areas are used for access to essential services such as, you know, shops and schools. So they all bring different challenges. So, you know, you could have an issue in an urban path with a typical one is, you know, overhanging vegetation, where you've got a jitty path and sort of clearing that and make sure that members of the public can pass and repass, possibly sometimes antisocial behaviour. And then in rural areas, you know, there's other issues there to do with the land management, and also, you know, sometimes illegal motorcycles seems to be the bane of my life sometimes on a pretty much daily basis as well. Next slide, Martin, please. So maintenance. So as we said, our colleagues in Bayer are the first ones sort of on the ground and to take action. We have quite a bit of infrastructure. So we do waymarking, signposting, surfacing. A slide there of an example where we had a washed out path, and we've built up a new culvert and rebuilt the path there as well. So yeah, there's quite a lot of infrastructure out there. There's quite a lot of work to do. Sometimes access has been an issue getting to these sites because of the weather, or trying to get consent to get to them as well with landowners. Next slide, Martin, please. Responsibilities. So just very quickly, we're responsible as the Highway Authority for waymarking, signposting, surfacing. Landowners are responsible as well for, so this example here is clearing a cross-field path, so it's a path straight through the middle of that field. So we work with landowners. We have a ploughing and cropping campaign twice a year, and we work with them very closely to ensure that paths are reinstated after they've been ploughed or crops have been sown. Next slide, Martin, please. So this is A2 of the rights of way management plan. Accessibility, this one's we're very keen on this to ensure that all members of the community can access the network. So a good example there on the slide, quite a simple one really. We've got an old style, which is the responsibility of the landowner. That's there either historically or it's there for stock control. And we've worked with the landowner basically by providing that metal kissing gate on the right-hand side, so members of the public don't have to step over that stile. But sometimes we'll look at surfacing, look at improving gradients, and the old railway lines and country parks are great for accessibility just by the very nature of them. Next slide, please, Martin. Connectivity of the network. So we want to try and improve the network and connecting it with the ordinary road network. So in Nottinghamshire, like many counties, we have lots of main roads, we have got railway lines, and of course that's severed the rights of way network over the years. So we'd like to try and improve that so members of the public can safely get around on the network. So we're always looking for opportunities. So there's a great example here, the A453, where we had some new public rights of ways, some new bridleways, and we got some servicing works done, all paid for, obviously, by Highways England and the County Council's contribution to that scheme. Next slide, Martin, please. So aim 4 of the rights of way improvement plan. So it's very important, of course, with maintenance and recording of the rights of way network, but also is letting people know what they can do, what they can't do, looking at the countryside code, of course, which is very important, and just ensuring that members of the public know what's available within the county for obviously residents and visitors alike. So we've produced various leaflets over the years. The Routes and Rides one we've been doing for quite a long time. We've got another new one, number 3, coming out later this year as well. But on the left-hand side there is Health Walks. That's been particularly successful. That started off with some funding from our colleagues in Public Health. We've worked with local surgeries and other stakeholders, and we've had some really good feedback with those. And we're just looking at a couple again later this year to look at different areas within the county. Next slide, Martin, please. Just very quickly, we also attend some of the county shows and some of the ploughing matches. Not only are these good for liaising with members of the public, but also with the landowners as well, talking to them, about their issues, their problems, responsibilities, and just exchanging, communication between them about what we can do and of course what they can do as well to make sure the network is available for all. Next slide, please, Martin. Definitive map and statement. So this is a legal copy or legal record of all public rights of way, as I said already. We deal with claims of public rights of way, which can get very emotive sometimes. There was some legislation a few years ago which looked at putting a cap on this definitive map and claiming old public rights of way based on historical documentary evidence. So that was a cap in 2026. It got extended to 2031 plus. It's a massive task, a very big undertaking. The Ramblers suggest that there's 41,000 miles of unrecorded rights of way in Wales. So we had quite a few claims when the legislation first came in, but that's very recently, in fact, on Boxing Day. So that's been scrapped, and central government are looking at sort of going through the legislation with that. So there is no longer a cap on the definitive map. Next slide, Martin, please. Finally, the 6th aim of the rights of way improvement plan is working with volunteers. So this is very satisfying. So this is from the local access forum which we manage. So that's a group of local volunteers who represent different different interests, I should say. Also, we do tasks such as the one on the slide where we do some signposting and waymarking. This was in Ossington. We did it a couple of times last year, and the volunteers get a lot out of it, get some work done as well, and it's very satisfying all round. And it's certainly something we'd like to try and do a little bit more of this year as well. Next slide, Martin. So to sort of round up, really, obviously, what are we going to do? Of course, we're going to continue to engage and communicate with local members, and that's very important. We'll sort of work with other stakeholders like the user groups and landowners and parishes who take a particular interest in public rights of way. Continue our positive relationship, of course, with VIA, working with their rights of way team who look after the daily enforcement and maintenance. Continue to liaise with other highway authorities. So certainly in the East Midlands, we have a group, and we obviously have meetings on a quarterly basis. We'll look for new opportunities. So, you know, with EMCA, for example, and continue to work with developers and local planning authorities. And that's always very useful to look at improvements in the network. And finally, we'll look at continue to invest in technology. We'll have a new sort of reporting and mapping system later this year. Hopefully that'll be online very shortly. It'll make it a lot easier, a lot more efficient, both for county council officers and members of the public to report issues and problems which they come across on the network, and also just view where all the public rights of way are in the county. So that's a very quick sort of gallop through rights of way. So thank you very much.
Or I'll start reading something. That'll teach me. Thank you for that, Neil. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so we'll open. Oh, thank you. I'll move that as well.
And you're on the wrong page as well.
That'll teach me. Right, here we go. Yeah, so if we can move the recommendations, detail the report, and if I can have a seconder, please.
Second to reserve the right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Creamer. And we can now open the floor to debate. That would be wonderful if anybody's got any questions. Yeah, Roger. We'll go with Councillor Upson first. Thank you.
Neil, just picking up on your last point, I think I'm right in saying you were looking towards having a online reporting of issues. Is that something like we've already got online for the highways, where I can go online, a pothole or a street light or an overgrown hedge, and you just go on the map and put your marker and type in where, what, and who you are? Because that would be great if that's what you envisage for the rights of way world. If you're going to replicate something like that, is that what you have in mind?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Councillor, and that's what we're going to do. So we'll have a mapping system, and you'll be able to get your cursor. And typically with rights of way, it's a little bit easier, I always think, with the road network. But rights of way, you could be absolutely in the middle of nowhere, and we have reports which come back and it'll say, oh, it's on Donkey Lane. Well, only 200 people in the village know where Donkey Lane is, and it's not a name we know. And then, so by doing this, they'll be able to go straight to the location, be able to type in what it is. They'll also be able to look at progress and go back in there and log in again and see what's happening and look at other, issues which have been raised, of course, on the same path. And it will be the same issue as well. So yes, it'll be exactly.
That's good, because I have a local map with, I think I'm right in saying, every one of your footpaths or rights of way has a unique reference number, FP4, FP5 or whatever, within my parish, for want of a. I don't know whether that's duplicated across the whole of the county, whatever, but it doesn't say that on when you actually walk the path. It's got a signpost pointing on whatever, but you have to go onto I got a hard copy of a map to say to you it's Radcliffe-on-Trent Parish, footpath number 5, from to there, and there's a pothole or a puddle so-and-so halfway down. So that will help. Have you a time frame when you think this is going to be up and running?
We're hoping in the next couple of months. I mean, we're about there. We're doing testing with it now.
Oh, right. So actually next year then? Or
very short.
This calendar year?
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, we've got colleagues and some volunteers as well, actually, who are testing it for us to see how it works before we sort of release it. Yeah.
That would be a big improvement. Yeah, certainly, as you say, on one's going across fields, miles from anywhere.
Yeah.
Try and communicate with you as to where the problem is. Be much better on a map.
Yeah.
Great.
Did you walk through wording now, or did you say? How are you finding pinpoint the locations?
At the moment, how we pinpoint the locations is you're just relying on somebody sort of sometimes second guessing where they are. But of course, this new mapping system, you'll take the cursor and you'll be dropping, like something onto the map and saying, right, that's the point where, the style's in poor condition.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to drop that in, put some text in there, upload photos,
Yeah.
The rights of way office will be able to see that. They'll have a report the next morning. They'll log on and it'll have a list, of whatever the issues are. So
Brilliant.
it's really good.
Yeah, that is really
Impressive.
good. Okay, Councillor Creamer, please.
Just very quickly, the lifting of the cap on the definitive map.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what that will have on the effect that will have on the workload, because I know it's a long process actually to enter into a definitive map anyway. So it sounds good in the first place, removing the cap, but I'm just wondering, will that speed things up of getting things onto the map or slow things down? And will we need more staff?
But no, it's a good point, Councillor. It was announced on Boxing Day, and it's one of these where I was looking at my phone, laid in bed on Boxing Day, actually having a bit of a lie-in. And I thought, oh, right, okay, I didn't know anything about this.
Never off duty, never off duty. Love that.
I mean,
love that.
It wasn't a message from you, by the way.
No,
Gary was like,
it's on the BBC News. So, and it's not officially come from DEFRA as such yet. So we're waiting for that official confirmation, but that is the case anyway, but it's going to happen from the looks of it. But in our county, to be honest, we've had most of the claims come in already. So there's not, touching wood here, but there's not probably that many more, where there's other counties or highway authorities within England and Wales where they've had nothing. Yeah, so they still got it come. So it will still continue, and organisations such as the Ramblers and the British Law Society are obviously still very keen to keep pushing this forward. We've probably got a few more to come. And of course, regardless of this cap, which is now gone, you can still do the user claim. So, typically where you'll have a green field and it gets blocked off and members of the public have been using it for, say, 20 years. So that still continues as well.
I think it's worth.
So no change for us.
I think it
sounds like we're ahead of the game.
Councillor Creamer, we have obviously got an existing list of claims that we're dealing with, and we're working through those, and they're quite time consuming. So the good question about additional staff, we are working through those at a certain pace, and obviously we're doing that as effectively and as efficiently as we can. But I suspect it'll be a number of years before we get through that complete list. And I think the change in the legislation, which is likely to come through, will give us that extra time to work it through. But we do sometimes get to the point where members of the public are disappointed that their claim, isn't progressing at the speed that they would want it. Cases that we've got.
Yeah, we've got about just shy of 220 cases on our books at the moment. And Lincolnshire, for example, just as a comparison, I think they're on something like 600-700 as well at the moment. So they've got an incredible amount. And like I say, other authorities, they've only got 10. Yet they've got lots of these unrecorded rights of way still to, receive claims for. So, yeah, it is a massive task, and there's a lot of work involved. And of course, as you know, it does get quite emotive as well.
Thank you for that. Councillor Barney?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say other than don't footpaths bring us all a huge amount of joy, and I'm just struck by 3,000 kilometres.
Yeah.
What an incredible asset that is to our residents in one of the most beautiful counties of England. It's fantastic. We'll get out and enjoy them. And also just struck by really how small the budget is that you have to maintain this. I just wanted to put on record coming up to 4 years having been a councillor. I've had not overly frequent, but fairly frequent interaction with iHighways team, with Jane Baines, footpath officer in Rushcliffe. And from start to finish, whether it be a parish inquiry or a farmer inquiry or sometimes difficult, complex stuff to negotiate, I've always found the team to be incredibly supportive and really, really responsive. And every year, of course, we also get a flurry of inquiries about have we mowed, have things been trimmed, basically. Again, reported in action really, really quickly. So just a quick question. So the kissing gates that you showed a lovely picture of, we've had quite a few of those installed over the last few years, and they're fantastic. Much less likely to slip and hurt yourself as you go over them. But we did have a bit of a problem with people stealing them, so no security in them. The scrap men collected them. Right. Is that an issue, or was that just something that we experienced locally?
No, I think that's a bit of a one-off. I mean, you always get that, and somebody will steal something and part of the infrastructure, but it doesn't happen very often at all. And a lot of them in very remote areas anyway, so they're very difficult to get hold of. But I mean, the good thing with those steel ones as well is that they last long and they're sustainable as well. So, yeah.
Please see that's not a problem.
Yeah, no, thank
It
you.
was when my gates were stolen and the sheep got out.
Oh, well, that wouldn't be an issue. Yes, of course. Yeah,
Yeah, brilliant.
yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, thanks, Councillor Barney. Councillor Gowland.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the report. I have 3 questions. I always do. So the first one is, how often is the map updated? Is it a real time thing, or is it, 6 monthly or yearly? The next one is the LAF, the local access forum. I just went through the website. Has it not met for a while? And my actual question was going to be, can members of the public sort of volunteer to become a part of it, or is it actually people from the Ramblers or preordained organisations? But is it meeting now? And the final question, my main question really is, with new estates, how much opportunity do you have to engage with the developers to get the connectivity that you need in these pass through the estates and between estates?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, so the map is updated continuously,
Right,
to be honest with you, yes. I mean, I won't go into the whole legal procedure of it, and we're being
No,
there for
no.
hours, and you don't want to know that. But basically, the map consists of this magical legal map, which is upstairs here in County Hall, and there's a statement which goes with that as well. But when we do orders, so they're the legal orders for doing diversions or adding these claims to the map, that becomes part of the definitive map.
Real time.
So so what we do update the map, and then it becomes what we call a relevant date. But the map itself is that map and everything else behind it. So we have a working copy which is digital here on my laptop,
Yeah.
and that's got everything up to date, as in yesterday.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah. The local access forum, yes. So obviously we manage that, and we have a statutory duty to do that. It is made up of different people who have different interests. So it could be a walker, a cyclist, horse rider, to a landowner, somebody who's on the parish council. So yes, and we always welcome new volunteers, and it's great to have new and different people coming in, particularly representing different areas of countryside access and local government, of course, in general, and the community. So there's a wide variety of people on there, but we're always accepting new members. There's a chair who runs that. So at the moment, there's a gentleman called Dave Backhouse. He's the chair of it. We have a couple of councillors as well who's on the local access forum too. Yeah. And then development. Yeah, I mean, we're always looking for opportunities for development. And we talk to, and it's like with everything, some developers are really good and talk to you at a very early stage. They know us very well. Other developers, you don't know about it until, of course, something's gone into the local planning authority. It's a little bit more difficult because we have to go through the LPAs, and we're dealing with them as well. So, and no, they're great. They're very supportive, and they'll help us. But sometimes, actually competing priorities, which I'm sure you're fully aware of. So we have to get our point in. The good thing for us as well, though, is that rights of way are highways. So we do tend to get quite a few of the applications come in at an early stage through our colleagues in Highways DC. And sometimes people forget that rights of way, it's only a footpath, but it is a public highway in law, and that helps us to basically sometimes get in at a very early stage. I mean, we do reasonably well. Not everything is a public right of way, though. Sometimes it goes on the adopted sort of list of highways, and sometimes they're just like a permissive one where a management group looks after them. But personally, we always like to get them as rights of way, and it gives that sort of protection in law for the future and who's responsible for the maintenance in the future as well.
Yeah, sure.
So on the last point, so you do get the Highways Authority does always contact you. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
And on the second one, I've just gone to Google, and it does seem to not met since the 2022. I suspect I'm getting an old page, but could you circulate the web page for the LAF? Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks.
Of course. Yeah,
thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Anybody else? I've got a few bits for. No, just a couple of things. So first of all, a pinfold. It's not that's not Danger Mouse fame, I see.
Oh, right, yeah, I forgot about pinfold and danger.
What's a pinfold?
You've got quite a few in Nottinghamshire. So it was an area where basically to keep the sheep. So you could round them up and you keep them in this little pinfold. Sometimes, they're quite ornate. Sometimes it's just a stone sort of enclosure and it's very small.
Yeah.
But we've got quite a few in the county.
Yeah.
Quite a nice feature, a local historic feature. And a lot of the parishes are very keen on them, and which is great. And, they sort of look after them, keep them clean and tidy.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Parish has appointed somebody called a pinder.
Oh, really?
Who's responsible for collecting roaming sheep or animals and putting them in the pinfold, and then they have to pay a fine to get the animals back out.
I tell you what.
Yeah.
So this is a hive of information here, isn't it? I love it. Just on the urban path point, when we create a new urban path, do we do anything for drainage in terms of some sort of French drain? Because what I've come across is a lot of the urban paths that I've got tend to get covered in mud and leaves and all that. And I noticed that picture of the one that was with the tarmac.
Yes.
And there was some obvious mud banks down the side that, with the right rainfall, is going to put mud on those paths, which sort of removes a bit of their ability to be used, because then you get sort of people that may be, difficult, trouble on their feet, and can't get themselves around as well to use them. And I just wondered what we did when we are creating these paths. Do we ensure there is a draining, or we put drainage in, or don't we? On any of them. Also, are there any legal paths for motorbikes? And footpath signage as well? That's as I guess, is it too?
Just on sort of the urban paths then, a lot of these paths we've inherited, so they're hundreds of years old, and then developments happened around them. And what you sometimes find is you'll have a new housing development, or relatively new, obviously show my age, I'm sort of losing time these days, but you'll have a housing estate, and, it was just a path through a field. And of course, it's never been improved. It's still basically a path through the field, but now you happen to have housing around the side. And of course, the expectation levels go up as well, and understandably, rightly so. Members of the public want to use those paths, whereas it used to be, put your boots on if it was a rural path. It's now, something to get you down to, the chip shop or whatever.
Yeah.
So what we do is we have the opportunity to bid into the local transport plan. So that sort of ticks the boxes for those urban paths. We'd struggle on some of the rural paths just solely for recreation. So like that one on the slide, for example, we would have had capital funding for that. So what we try and do at that time is then look at the drainage, so we're basically starting from scratch.
Yeah.
So we'll look at the drainage, like you say, French drains, soakaways is always a good one, which we use as well. And then we'll surface it. I mean, we use different types of surfacing, and we've been using and experimenting with some tarmac, like a porous tarmac recently. And that's really good. And the water goes through and then it soaks away. Where, of course, we've sort of done it from scratch is perhaps where it's a new development. And again, we'll make sure that we'll put in, the drainage and the necessary infrastructure to try and protect that for the future. We're always trying to invest in the future to make sure it's sustainable. So we're not just doing a half job. We do it properly, and then it's going to last.
Yeah.
And that's always the aim. But yeah, I mean, because we inherit a lot of paths, and that's how they were. In fact, there's a bit of a backlog there to try and make those into, a more accessible route for the community.
Motorbike.
Yeah, motorbike. So yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, we have, so I've alluded to, we have something called byways open to all traffic. So these are old carriageways. They escape the tarmac. So you could have had a toll road, a couple of 100 years ago, and that became the main route. And everybody all uses that now. But if you look in some villages, you've still got some of these old carriageways. A lot of them are unsurfaced. They might just be natural grass surface, double hedgerows that typically look very attractive, very, very photogenic. The law still says that members of the public can use those in a vehicle, a road legal vehicle. So it's still, same as using any off highway. It's got to be taxed, insured, MOT and roadworthy and all of that. But they can still pass and repass on those. And what you've had sort of since the 1960s is members of the public starting to use these and sort of enjoy these sort of old carriageways. And it's become more and more popular in the last sort of couple of decades. We haven't got a lot in this county, highways open to traffic. We do have them. But what the recreational users who like using them on the motorbikes, all the Land Rovers and 4x4s, who like a network, you know, of connectivity. So ours are a little bit, you know, sort of here, there and everywhere. Whereas you could go into the Peak District, for example, and there's quite a good network sometimes in peaks, you know, sort of around, I don't know, you know, Hope Valley, for example.
Yeah.
And they get quite a lot, you know, every Saturday and Sunday. Lake District is the same as well. But we do have them, but it's not to the same extent. And as I said, I think sort of a legal use, you know, so, you know, an uninsured motorcyclist, you know, a motocross type bike,
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
which is competition,
Yeah,
whatever, or an old moped that, you know, a couple of young teenagers are using. They're the ones which are, you know, they'll go anywhere. You know, it doesn't have to be a right of way. It's just private land. They'll go absolutely anywhere, and that's the issue we do have. And we did have a meeting last week with my colleagues with police off-road units.
Yeah, they're good there actually.
They've just invested in some new vehicles, which are great. So, and you know, the ability to call them and say, look, we're having lots of problems, you know, around Warsaw, you know, one of the old quarries or something, then they'll come out and have a look.
Do that. And then signage just on the...
Yeah, signage. I mean, we have a duty to sign a public right of way. So, as you know, we do the sort of thing, the post, you know, with the white and green text there. And then we supplement that with waymarking. So, you know, the typical little disc that we have. Sometimes we use a post. Last sort of, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 years, we've been using the yellow top posts. So one of the issues members of the public used to have is where you're walking a crossfield path and you think, oh, where's the path at the other end, you know? And so we have these sort of 4x4 timber posts with a yellow top and a waymark disc, and that really helps. I mean, there is a balance. You don't want to overload the countryside with lots of, you know, infrastructure. But at the same time, you know, you want to be able to, and it helps landowners, you know, that's a big key thing, you know, trying to prevent trespass and people wandering all over. So it is quite useful to have those.
You want to avoid those ball fields, don't you, as best you can. Wonderful, thank you, that's great. Thank you very much. So that's, thank you everybody. Martin, for you.
I think
quick reminder.
I said a very quick reminder. Yeah, that was really interesting. I think the only thing that we just do is we'll just get information on the local access forum circulated to members, so they've got all the information on that, and so you can take that further. I think that's what came out of that. Okay.
Yep. So everybody happy? Everything's been picked up and all the questions answered. Thank you very much. Can you just take it to a vote then, please? That'd be wonderful. All those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Gary. Cheers, Mark. Thank you. Okay. Let's get out. Soft close. Fantastic. Okay, great. So we'll at that point dive onto agenda item 6, which is the crime and disorder strategy. I'm going to invite Councillor Scott Carlton. Nice to see you, Scott, Cabinet Member of Communities and Public Health, to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, colleagues. The Nottinghamshire plan sets out the ambition of this council to keep children, vulnerable adults and communities safe. To meet this ambition, the council has committed through the plan to work in partnership to reduce crime, the fear of crime, and most importantly, victimisation. The purpose of this item is to undertake statutory scrutiny of the Nottinghamshire Community Safety Agreement 2023 to 2025, which acts as a strategy for the Safe Nottinghamshire Board. The report and accompanying presentation sets out the statutory basis for this scrutiny, the Community Safety Agreement, and the priorities for the Safe Nottinghamshire Board. A specific task set out in the plan describes how we will lead and coordinate the Safe Nottinghamshire Board, working with the Police and Crime Commissioner, Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue, and of course District and Borough Councils to tackle and prevent crime in our communities. This task is the work of the Safe Nottinghamshire Board, particularly through the delivery of the Nottinghamshire Community Safety Agreement, which is what the Place Select Committee is scrutinising this morning. The circulated report and presentation that you will hear shortly provides a statutory basis for the scrutiny and for the community safety agreement and for the role of the Nottinghamshire Safe Nottinghamshire Board, rather. You will also hear more about the delivery of the current agreement and the development of the next iteration, which is due from April 2025. And so attendance here this morning is timely, of course. Chairman, with your permission, I am going to pause and now briefly hand over to Vicky Cropley, the Programme Manager for Safe Nottinghamshire Board, to take us through the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Morning, Vicky.
Try and project. So as Councillor Carlton has said, the report talks through the legislative background to why we have a Safe Nottinghamshire Board, the Community Safety Agreement, and also the requirement for scrutiny. The report also sets out the priorities, cross-cutting themes, the community safety partnership priorities, which are also shown on the slide. In the next 3 slides, though, I want to give a bit more insight into how the Safe Nottinghamshire Board meets the requirement to coordinate activities to address the identified county-wide priorities. So each of the priorities is led by a member of the Safe Nottinghamshire Board, who in turn has a lead role in the partnerships and boards that are responsible for delivering the aims of the priority, and they're shown in the box on the right of the presentation. Also involved in the partnerships are representatives of the community safety partnerships from across the county. So that's the ones covering Ashford and Mansfield, Classical, Newcastle, Sherwood, and also South Notts Community Safety Partnership. Then the chairs of each of one of those community safety partnerships is a member of the Safe Nottinghamshire Board. This slide gives further insight into how the Safe Nottinghamshire Board ensures there is progress in delivering the community safety agreement. So all the partnerships with responsibility for delivering the priority has their own plans. The SNB then has an overarching plan that reads across those individual plans, draws out the salient points, and also the areas of specific focus for the board. Then at each meeting of the Safe Nottinghamshire Board, the board members consider that overarching plan to determine if it's on track or if additional activities needed. And those are underpinned by the information provided in the research and insight report that's produced specifically for the board by the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner. There's also a standing agenda item that enables community safety partnership chairs to raise issues from their locality that they want considered at a county-wide strategic level. So this slide shows some examples of the actions that are in the board's overarching delivery plan. So in relation to PREVENT, which is the Preventing Radicalisation and Terrorism agenda, the County Council and Nottingham City Council are subject to an annual benchmarking assessment by the Home Office to check if the requirements of the PREVENT duty are being met. The District and Borough Councils are subject to the same duty, but they aren't subject to the benchmarking assessment due to capacity within the Home Office regional PREVENT team. So the Safe Nottinghamshire Board oversight and the local PREVENT delivery arrangements provides a system but collectively to ensure that all named authorities meet PREVENT duty. High harm offences, this is modern slavery. So the slavery and exploitation team are based within the Nottingham City Council, and they have dedicated officers who work with partners to identify and tackle exploitation, modern slavery and trafficking, and offer support to survivors. Also to strengthen a multi-agency prevention and management cases, the team established the exploitation conference process, so SARAC. The SARAC brings together statutory and non-statutory agencies to discuss suspected or known cases and plan a joint response to manage the risk and to intervene. The team also delivers awareness raising sessions and supports police on pre-planned operations. And then finally, fraud. So the board oversees the work to increase, amongst other things, awareness of fraud to help prevent people from becoming victims, but also to encourage reporting and improving standards for central role in that work. The report refers to the development of the next community safety agreement, and the final 2 slides of this presentation give a bit more information on the decisions that have been made about what priorities will be included in the next community safety agreement and why. The Safe in Nottinghamshire board met on the 24th of February to undertake the priority setting exercise, and this slide shows what informed those decisions. So the evidence base for the priority setting is the Police and Crime Needs Assessment put together by the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. And this assessment combines a range of partner agency data and stakeholder perspectives. It's a forward-looking assessment with focus on priority threats, outliers and emerging risks. And it's also used to inform the development of the Police and Crime Delivery Plan. The context in which the new agreement is being developed is also discussed by the board, particularly local government reorganisation. And discussions also considered the priority setting principles that the board agreed in 2022. The headlines of those are shown in the box on the right of the slide. A key point within those is the board's commitment to ensure their work is action focused and pinpoints for the Safe in Nottinghamshire board to make a distinct and significant contribution. This slide sets out the outcome of the priority setting discussions. So the current priorities will be retained and the Police and Crime Needs Assessment will be used to identify the specific focus for each of the priorities included in the next overarching delivery plan. The agreement is going to last for 2 years, recognising that government reform will take place in that time period. And finally, there was a discussion by the board about antisocial behaviour, recognising the significant impact this can have on communities and people's daily lives, which is currently a community safety partnership priority. There is across the county a community safety partnership review taking place that was amongst its remit is looking at the partnership structure across the county that manage antisocial behaviour. And the team that are taking the review have been asked by the board to consider if there is a role for the Safe in Nottinghamshire board that would add value to this work. That team will also be looking at the introduction of the new crime and policing bill, which will enhance powers to tackle antisocial behaviour.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for that. Yeah, so if we can move the recommendations as detailed in the report recommendations at the bottom of the page, on page 22. You have a second?
Yep, second, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we'll now open the floor to debate. If anybody's got anything they'd like to ask at this point.
Just a quick one. Item bullet point 10 on antisocial behaviour task force. The future task force is currently being considered. Any idea when that final decision will be taken at all? Is it going to be months or weeks, years?
Just repeat the
Item 10, the future, the understanding, antisocial responses, local reporting, referral plan. The future of this task force is currently being considered as part of the Office and Police Crime Commissioner. So will it still exist and its roles? Do we know when we will know?
We don't as the board, the Safe Nottingham board haven't been updated on that. However, the Community Safety Partnership Review is looking at antisocial behaviour anyway. So the PCC will make their decision about what they want to do. The partnership is very on with looking at antisocial behaviour and arrangements about antisocial behaviour. On that. So whether they continue that group, we have got the partnership in place. We wouldn't necessarily continue with that, but kind of streamline. So that existing doesn't stop the work. We're doing the work anyway. It's a piece of part of it. They've got a decision to make.
It will still exist, just a bit streamlined.
I was going to say, and I think to sort of build upon that in further sort of thing is that some health portfolio transitions and moves forwards, that we're not just looking from the communities aspect of the council, whether that be the youth service and trade Vicky touched upon in her presentation, but they're actually taking a little step back, almost what we would describe as looking at the causes of the causes. of could we actually prevent some of this happening in the first place? And certainly, as again has been alluded to, as we transition over the next few years in local government reform into whatever decision is made nationally about the future of local government in Nottinghamshire. So some of my concerns would be that unitary councils, how do you stay local and make your continued impact on the ground, so to speak. So I think really looking at around that sort of what you described equals around the building blocks of life and good health, whether the communities that are affected around, say, substance use, has that been having a direct impact and correlation to social behaviour for those, for educational attainment, etc., etc. So I only really say that to give you a sort of a reassurance, councillor, that this will stay front and centre.
Yes, so it's such an important reason. That's what everybody really on antisocial behaviour and see any changes to our policy on it, I worry. So yes, thank you for your reassurance.
Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else on the floor before I just put my 5 pence worth in? Yeah, Councillor Gowan.
So in the new operating model that you talk about in part 2, that was implemented, I think recently, has it worked? And will it be carried over to USA, CSA, or is it likely to change?
Whether it's worked, it's been reviewed as part of the new partnership. There was also a strategic partnership review initiated to look at how the safe not for works with that landscape of health more forward safeguarding. That's on that side of it, but operationally that's part of what we're looking at these years to really see if it's made a difference. Thanks. Very much. Thanks for that. So building on what you said, so there's some specific work being done around really looking at that local response going on the community safety partnership level. So that's one piece of work that he's articulating there to really understand has the objective of the safety not been more than so that will look at that specifically. But building on what Councillor Carlton was mentioned is I think we're in a fortunate position that we can really look at how we address this agenda in a different way. So many of the areas have looked at this from more of a public health lens and really talking around what are the things that are, as Carlton was mentioning, the causes of the causes that are creating conditions that might increase the risk around our population, our communities, in the community safety arena. And as part of that, we are looking, you'll know in terms of your membership in terms of the Health and Wellbeing Board around how do we make the most out of the health that we've got to really drive those outcomes in a range of ways for our people of Nottinghamshire. And I think what we're addressing is that there are quite a lot of crossovers in terms of some priority areas from the Safe Nottinghamshire Board and the Health and Wellbeing Board. And if we're truly looking at that causes of causes approach, then coming together, we might have a better opportunity to have a greater impact. So that's the piece of work that Vicky's alluding to. Obviously, we need to see what's happening around us in terms of there's a lot of work going on nationally in terms of white paper and the opportunities that we will have in terms of local government reform, but also thinking about that emerging role of that strategic authority and what MPIP can do in this space. So there is some discussions there around how can we look at how we are planning our communities differently, how can we look at how we are supporting that thriving community, which will all have knock-on into that community safety space. So we need to see obviously what's going to happen in terms of our local reform, but we are really clear on what the priorities are, and we're looking at how we bring those two strategic partnerships more closely aligned to think around how we drive this together in a more effective way. Because I think the value of those partnerships is how they can do stuff collectively that individual organisations can't do themselves. It's that added value that I think
tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime, I think somebody said it, wasn't they? But just coming back to the community partnerships and local government reorganisations, so do you see it as a risk or an opportunity? I mean, we've heard about the risk, but it did seem quite a lot of patchwork of organisations trying to work in this space. do you think it's going to be a benefit or a risk? And what are the ways to work around the risks?
I was going to say, I think, to answer that question quickly, that there's always clearly going to be some positives, opportunities versus the risk. And obviously, I've mentioned that one as a unitary council by definition, a bit more of a bigger mushroom above the county or whatever footprint is finally arrived at. But certainly, I think within opportunities, I would say a planning point of view, of having it all in one space. And I know you said that the public health team have started to operate in that much wider planning of community developments from a health opportunity point of view. We have some of those sort of knock-on effects around, say, behaviour, but it's also having a clear understanding of antisocial behaviour in that sort of more broad sense of what do we actually mean by antisocial behaviour. Is it something around a noisy neighbour, as an example, up to those sort of stereotyped younger people that amass at a bus stop and may come across as a bit intimidating to maybe older residents.
Thank you.
Derek Eaton, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just to echo Councillor Carlton, really, I think from an officer perspective, we'd absolutely see the potential for unitarisation as a real opportunity to help the kind of strategic services and the significant people-related services that the county council currently operates come together with the much more local neighbourhood services that are operated by district and borough partners at the moment. And in the space there of community safety, that what we see when we look at unitary authorities is their ability to act much more quickly and immediately to deal with very local issues by marshalling all of their resources in a way that at the moment is quite difficult for us to do in, as you say, a bit more patchwork sort of setup. So I think we'd see this prospective reorganisation and unitarisation as a real opportunity to improve neighbourhood services, including community safety, and particularly about antisocial behaviour and issues with housing and tenancies and all the things that can detract from the quality of life in neighbourhoods and so on. So I think we very much see this as an opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if that's it from the floor, just a couple of things from me. In terms of multi-agency interaction, obviously issues like the Valdo Calacane murders and how the interaction with mental health services seems to have caused been a problem in terms of that information getting out in the right way. I'm just interested to know if you feel that that's changed anything in the way that we deliver this, and if there's been any additional learning in terms of that's fed into this policy. Also, in terms of public information as well, I know one of the difficult things for residents when a crime's committed is understanding who the perpetrators are, and sometimes that information can come out slowly. And as a result of that information coming out slowly, sometimes that can lead to misinformation being perpetrated by online sources and that sort of thing. And again, I wonder how the moving change, the change of communication is having an impact on the things that we do.
Say those in order, Chairman. Certainly following on from the tragedy of the attacks in Nottingham, that I think there has been and can still be a significant amount of learning. Obviously, it's been back in the press, particularly from the police force, being looked at again in terms of some of the failures, as bluntly, what has happened. Certainly last week, I think it was the Regional Prevent Board meeting, which I now co-chair with Leicestershire County Council and Councillor Craig Smith. There was a piece in there around some more understanding, necessarily wouldn't sit in that sphere, but certainly following on from the Southport killings, that there is still significant space for improvement, but certainly from a Nottinghamshire point of view, that I'm more assured that there is an improvement, there's been learning, but there's still a long way to go.
From DC, that's Carlton. So I think, as you mentioned, that this is a really complex area, and each case is slightly different, and we need to obviously make sure that we're considering each really real tragedy and where it is. In terms of the VC there's been a significant amount of work with the Integrated Care Board and NHS England to really review the quality of services that are provided to Nottinghamshire. And many of those discussions have been taken through House Scrutiny. So if you want any more additional information around that, I'd recommend going back to some of the House Scrutiny meetings, because there's very regular discussions around the quality of services and what's being done in relation to that CQC Section 48 review. And I think that is really generating change within the services itself, but also thinking around our system approach to how are we considering serious mental illness into a range of arenas. So whether that's from a community safety point of view, or whether that's from a health and wellbeing point of view, or whether that's from an adult social care point of view. So I think the learning out of that is cross-fertilising many different arenas in that, and obviously there's much more involvement around what happened around that specific incident as well. In terms of understanding who perpetrators are, I think one of the things that we're really seeing through the evidence base is that a lot of serious violence and crime is also related to domestic abuse. And there are a range of services within public health. We have a specific domestic abuse grant to support some of the duties around domestic abuse, to really work with victims of domestic abuse, but also with perpetrators. Because going back to the causes of the causes conversations, we know that if you were brought up in a household where there was a lot of childhood trauma, then you would be more at risk of either being a victim of or a survivor of domestic abuse, but also you may be more at high risk of being in that perpetrator category. So I think there's something around what we wouldn't want to do is obviously get involved in terms of police investigations.
No, of course.
There might be reasons why they can or can't communicate that, and we'd have to have conversations with the police and stuff like that. But I think there is something for me around really thinking around how can we try and break some of these intergenerational trends that we know are linked to poverty, deprivation, trauma in childhood, because these are areas where we have individuals that have complex and vulnerabilities in a range of different ways. And I think there's something for me around how do we try and work with those individuals and families in a different way, so we can start breaking the chain so that they have positive outcomes and so that everybody can thrive. So I don't know if that
yeah, I think so. I think it's just like I said, I think it's how we ensure that the information that was going out is clear and honest, if you like, to the point, so people understand that, and that confidence comes from the public in their ability to have issues that are concerning them or things that have happened to them, to ensure that they have the belief in the system and the system works for them and it's not working against them. I suppose that's where I'm coming from in terms of that, let them understand what's happening. Derek Higton, wants to come. Thank you for that.
Yeah, just on that specific point, Chair, I know that I think it's the National Association of Chief Constables and the CPS are engaged in a national conversation and doing some national work around how the police can get more into a proactive space about communicating with the public where high profile offences have been committed, and get more into a space where they can not necessarily name suspects, but identify, put more information in the public domain around the identity of suspects or perpetrators. And that's a specific response to the Southport tragedies last year. Yeah. So that's because it's all to do with the kind of legal framework that's around arrests and prosecution. So, but I know that those conversations are happening. What the outcome of that will be, and whether that speeds up the ability of police forces to kind of identify suspects, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's hope so. Like I say, I think one of the worst things that comes out of these things is the level of, as well as the misinformation that can end up out there, can have quite significant knock-on effects across the community. Thank you for all of that. If there's nothing else from anybody else, okay. So Martin, if you could read a summary of the discussion, please.
I say lots of things covered. I think a lot of things will kind of like come out to it later, especially what Rick was saying about the link between SMB and the Health and Wellbeing Board. Just note that obviously this is something we do have to consider every year, so it'll be coming back to committee March next year at the latest, but obviously it all depends what members put into the work programme, so it may be before, but thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Everybody's happy, everything's been captured that they would like to have done. That's fantastic. So if we could take a vote, please.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Pardon me.
And yeah, if we could take a vote with a show of hands, that'd be wonderful. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's unanimous. So thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Appreciate all the work that's done as well. Thank you. Right, also nature recovery.
We're drifting apart.
What have you said again?
In that space.
I know. Okay. Always moving back. Maybe it's not as bad as we thought.
I'm used to it.
Okay. Wait for Martin. Martin, will you want to land before we? For the thousands that are watching at home, Martin's just checking on the current presentation situation.
We've got an exciting video for it, so we need to.
Video. All the mod cons here, you know, flying the flags.
Okay, so that's my drawing.
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay. Brilliant, can't wait. It's the teeth, you know, it's the teeth.
Sue likes the little lips.
Yeah, the mouse was cute. Okay, thank you for that. Yes, so that brings us to agenda item 7, which is the local nature recovery strategy. And I think we are asking.
Yeah, but and I'll just hand over straight to the team, Chair. So obviously we've got the slides on screen now. The team are here, so they'll just run you through where we're at. And this is a bit of an update, obviously, on our work covering Nottingham and Nottinghamshire on the local nature recovery strategy.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Wayne. Yeah, and good morning, everyone. We presented to the Place Select Committee last July and outlined the new statutory duty that's placed on the County Council to publish the local nature recovery strategy for Nottingham and Nottinghamshire as its role as a responsible authority. As we explained, this is a new strategic approach to nature recovery, and when all the responsible authorities across the country prepare, then we'll have a really good, rich picture of understanding where our priorities are in nature recovery. We've now reached a very important milestone and now have approval from Council Clerk as a Cabinet member to share the draft LNRF with supporting authorities and then consult with the public. And since July, the last Select Committee, we've been working very much closely with the supporting authorities, the district councils and NENCA, and a range of stakeholders. So Heather's just going to just go through what we've been doing since July.
Okay, great. Thank you, Heather.
So I'm going to talk and he's going to operate the technology, because as I've already demonstrated, I can't operate. So that's just a list of what we're going to take you through quickly, just to update committee on where we've got to with this. So as David's just mentioned, this is a new statutory system, spatial strategies for nature's recovery. They are intended to be locally led and collaborative. So that is basically what we've been doing for the last few months, year and a half, yeah, is working with partners. The intention is that we map the most valuable existing areas for nature and then agree the priorities that were required within the county for nature recovery. And we then have to move so that we've then got a spatial strategy for nature recovery for the county. Next slide, please. This is the process that we shared with you last year. Step 2 is greyed out because that actually only applies to the review of the LNRS once it's been published. The areas in green are the stage that we're at now. So we've worked our way through all of those statutory requirements, and we're now at the point the local habitat map in draft form and a draft statement of priorities. Those little boxes don't really give any kind of indication of just how much work has gone into this from a whole range of stakeholders and staff. It's been a huge piece of work and has taken over some people's lives. However, we're now there.
Oh,
Yeah.
We knew that'd win you over.
Yeah.
that's it. We're voting for it now.
All good. So, as David said, County Council is the designated responsible authority for Nottinghamshire and Nottingham. The ultimate sign-off when we get to that point is Cabinet. So we will be bringing back the final version to Cabinet to sign off. Our supporting authorities in Nottinghamshire are the City Council, the 7 district councils, East Midlands Combined County Authority and Natural England. We've had a huge amount of stakeholder oversight, and also political oversight has been via the Nottingham Committee. We took this still at a very early stage. We will be going back at a later stage. Next slide. So, what have we been doing? Been a lot of round table over maps. The first stage we had to, under the regulations, the first thing we had to do was publish our local habitat map online. This process has created its own acronyms. There's a whole new set of them. These were the areas of particular importance for biodiversity, or APIS, and that's the existing sites. So sites of special scientific interest, local reserves, county wildlife sites. We then had to prepare a description of the LNRS area. So we've drawn very heavily on Nick's expertise and knowledge of the county there, and also the expertise of our stakeholders. We've identified the pressures and opportunities for the county, and then we've held a number of stakeholder engagement workshops. Out of those, we've developed the priorities and measures, and we've worked with partners to look at those and develop those further. I think it's probably fair to say that the most significant part of this has been the mapping of those measures. This has been a huge piece of work because it has to be accurate before we go out to public consultation. So this has taken a lot of work, mapped everyone's ideas and then refined them to make sure that they meet the priorities. As part of that, we also have to liaise with our neighbouring responsible authorities, particularly important for Derbyshire because we're within the same combined county authority, but also with Leicestershire, Lincolnshire and South Yorkshire to make sure that we're joining up so that we're not mapping things that then stop at the county. As well as habitats, we've been looking at species. This involved a wide range of species, many of whom are volunteers, coming together, looking at the long list drawn from the statutory lists, and then sense checking those, categorising those. Some of the species can actually be dealt with by measures that are put in place for habitats, but some of them can't. So part of that work was to identify which ones their needs can be addressed through habitat work and which ones actually need bespoke actions. And out of that, we've got 15 habitat assemblages and 15 individual species where we feel that they need some bespoke work. Huge amount of stakeholder engagement has taken place. We've worked with the NFU and the CLA to talk to farmers and landowners. Timing of that's been quite critical because obviously there are certain times of the year when they just can't liaise. We've worked very heavily with local authorities planners because the LNRS will be a consideration in the planning process. All of the conservation organisations operating in the county. We've talked to business, we've talked to the Home Builders Federation, engaged with them. Landscape scale planning organisations, that's organisations like Severn Trent, who operate across a catchment rather than within a county. Lots of green space and community groups. Other landholding organisations, we've talked to some of the big landowners in the county. We've approached them for some of the big estates. And we've also engaged with parish councils. This has been supported by some consultants, RSK Nature Positive, who've done a fabulous job in supporting us with that and given us some really interesting ideas of how best to engage with different sectors to get the best results. Those workshops, we've held workshops between May and October. 104 participants from different organisations, which we felt was a really good level of engagement. Public events, we had 2 stalls, one at the Knots Day event at Sherwood Forest and one in the Victoria Centre, which worked surprisingly well. I think we got a lot of interaction there. And the picture at the bottom that you can see is part of the display that we showed to people. I say we, I wasn't there. Part of the display that we showed to people that and asked them for their views on what best represented nature in Nottinghamshire. I think it's fair to say that we've been really heartened by the response that we've had. There is a lot of enthusiasm out there for nature, for engaging with nature, and for driving forward nature recovery. We attended 2 ploughing matches. The advice we received was that going to events where farmers were already there would be the best way to engage. So we attended 2 ploughing matches, and we also had a bespoke evening event, which I believe involved supper.
It did, yeah. Pies and peas, I think.
Pie and peas, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Choice, yeah, choice. Good choice.
And then we've engaged with stakeholders through online, we put a map online that stakeholders could access, and a short survey, which, as you can see, we've got 27 responses, and people dropped 170 map pins on, indicating areas where they thought there might be importance to nature. Priorities and measures. So priorities are the end result. That's what we're trying to achieve. Measures are how we do it. And the measures have to be realistic and deliverable within the timescale of this LNRF, which is 10 years maximum. A lot of it is based around the Lawton principles, so we're looking at more, better, more connected. And there is also a requirement to look at how we can deliver wider environmental benefits through the measures that we've put in place. So things like natural flood management and public access are also important. Just in case you don't believe me, I said we spent a lot of time looking at maps and drawing on pencils.
You know how to have fun here, though. So, don't let anybody say otherwise.
Absolutely. So this is mapping areas that could become of particular importance for biodiversity. So these are the ACBs as opposed to the APIPs, which are the existing ones. Some of that is mapped at field level. Some of it is mapped as buffer zones. So, for example, watercourses. I think the discussion with the Environment Agency was that they wanted to see buffer zones around some of the watercourses in the county. Some of them are across a wider area. So, for example, where we've got areas of ancient woodland and plantations on ancient woodland, we're looking at a wider area of joining and connecting. And the end result is that we have a map that will be publicly available when we get to the public consultation point. It's on Spectrum Spatial, which is our county council, the system the county council uses. Helpfully, also the system that I believe Derbyshire uses, so they will join together. You can open it for individual layers. You can have all the layers on together, should you wish, and there will be information available and what those individual layers need. Those are the habitat groups that have been prioritised, that down the left-hand side, with species tagged on the bottom. They possibly won't surprise people because we've been talking about these for a long time as being important for Nottinghamshire. So the stage we're at now is we have permission from approval by a cabinet member to go to the supporting authorities. There is a statutory requirement for us to give them 28 days to consider our draft statement and draft map. Provided they don't object, which I hope, then we will go out to public consultation on the 6th of May. And that's a 6-week public consultation. And we have to respond to all of those, any comments that are made, we have to publish them. Which we're going to show.
I think it might be on the next slide.
Is it on the next slide? So,
just going to check the sound.
As part of the public consultation, we've created a short video to explain to people what this is about, in case they're coming to it cold, which most people really.
Apologies, I think I have to then rejoin because it didn't work this time. So,
yeah. So we have an online engagement platform with a survey that will be on the public website. We're also planning on going to public events so that we can engage with people directly, such as the county show. We are going to be, I think, probably with the other land-based organisations at the county show, so that we're in the space where we know people like farmers would. We're going to hold some online webinars. We've been talking recently about having adverts in the bus stations, because on the rolling display screens, so that we're picking up that footfall as well, to try and make sure we're reaching as wide a section of the population as possible. And we're also working with the NFU to put together some specific events for farmers again. Because now we've got maps that we can show them, I think it's going to be more productive. And we're going to raise awareness on social media. I say we, I don't mean me.
I'm just going to click into it now, but apologies
if this doesn't work, it is available on the NCC LNRS website page.
Live with 3 minutes, can't we? Oh.
Not just me then. That's exactly the problem.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, is the speakers, the
Right.
sound from the speakers is also sharing with the noise.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how to.
We can
rectify
distribute a link around so everyone can
Yeah.
watch it. Yeah, okay, wonderful. Thank you for trying anyway. Worth a shot, wasn't it?
Just in those 2 seconds.
Yeah, sounds brilliant. Yeah, I'm
That's a really good video.
ready to fill out the questionnaire now. Actually. Thank you very much for all of that. Is that a lot? Happy?
There was just a slide with the timescale.
Yeah, go on. If you want to finish off.
So we got approval from Cabinet member on the 3rd of March. We are going out to public consultation, fingers crossed, on the 6th of May. We're hoping to bring that back, the final version, back to Cabinet in July. That's entirely dependent on how many responses we get.
Okay.
And from what we're seeing around the country, that's very variable. Some of the ones, the LNRSs that have already gone to public consultation, only got a handful of responses. Some have got a lot.
Okay.
So we're not sure, but that's what we're aiming for. We then have to send the pre-publication version back out to the supporting authorities and notify the Secretary of State of intention to publish, which we're anticipating doing. And then DEFRA will tell us that they want us to review it between 3 and 10 years of publication. They haven't decided yet. So if we're reviewing in 3 years' time, we'll be reviewing in 10.
Okay. That's it. Lovely job. Right, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. And so I'll move on now to the recommendations as detailed on page 32. If I can have a seconder, please.
I'll second that, Chair, and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you very much, Councillor Creamer. So if we can now open the floor to questions, please. Yeah, Councillor Creamer.
A comment and a very quick question, might be a silly question, but yeah, all seems very positive, working well. I'm looking forward to seeing them. But I'm just wondering how SSIs will be identified on the map. A little bit concerned about their protection, but at the same time, a lot of them are open. So I'm just wondering how they would be identified in the map, because they're presumably already there.
Yeah, that's right. So triple SIs. So Heather mentioned these APIBs, the areas of particular importance for biodiversity. So that's the existing resource of particularly important nature sites. And the triple SIs are mapped as part of that, along with local nature reserves, local wildlife sites, and what are called irreplaceable habitats. So that's ancient woodlands, fen, and ancient and veteran trees, and the ones in Notts. So yeah, the triple SIs are recognised as part of the existing resource.
Yeah, they are already mapped on the Magic website, which is the Natural England site. So you can already find those in public domain.
Okay, thank you. Great, thank you. Councillor Barney next, please. You can you are. I did have you down straight away, but well,
might probably be a little bit thick here, so please forgive me. But I can see how much work's gone into this, and first principles, it seems fantastic to have set out a map right across the county that identifies. I can see it's a statutory piece of work that you're feeding into here. So my next question would probably be about Act 2021 that this is feeding into as the first phase. So we know where everything is, we know what we should be doing, and it's us guests making firm recommendations of where we can get the quick wins and the best enhancements for biodiversity and for nature going forward over the next 10 years. What are the next steps underpinning this in terms of delivery? So BNG, is this going to be a tool that enables planning authorities to then scoop cash out of developments to then focus on the strategic priority list? Is that one of the outcomes, hopefully, that this will be? And then the other priorities as well as identified in trying to use this data for mapping. So what other mechanisms are likely to follow through in order to ensure this has teeth, to ensure that it doesn't just become a doomsday mapping book of archives, but actually it does make real tangible differences to wood nature and wildlife across Nottinghamshire?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a statutory document, so there's an expectation it's going to be embedded into the planning system, and they will have to have a strong nod to it as part of the local plan process and also as part of the decision-making process. But you mentioned BNG, and this is going to help BNG as well, direct BNG to the right locations as part of the planning process as well. So this is going to be a really important tool. And I think last week the government announced measures how they want the LNRS to be delivered through the planning system. So there's guidance out there now. So this is really, really important for Nottinghamshire about making sure that we recover, we can deliver, but also get it into the right locations as well.
I mean, in short, on the developer side, that's something we're working strongly around now, as David's outlined, that we will pull that cash in to deliver on our priorities. And I think setting it out in the mapping will really help with that.
So how much difference might this make then in rebuild terms? I mean, we're talking millions and millions of pounds worth of benefit for nature, or?
I think the real benefits, or the quantum of benefit that BNG in particular could bring is yet to be seen. I think BNG has been quite slow in terms of the uptake, but yes, potentially could bring in a lot of income. I think we still don't know quite how this is going to relate to ELMS, which is on environmental land management. That's funding that government gives to farmers to carry out sort of nature friendly activities on farmland. So there's a suggestion that the LNRS will be used to help guide where that funding is focused, possibly, but we're not sure. The information about that's still a bit scant, so we don't quite know how that's going to relate. There's also the suggested reforms to the planning system and these so-called development plans. I think it's delivery plans, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
So there's talk of the LNRS becoming the delivery plan for nature. So yeah, potentially, this could actually really deliver a sort of step change increase in sort of nature recovery in Nottinghamshire. But without wanting to sound too cynical, we have been here before, and it's all about, ultimately it's about money, isn't it, to deliver things?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. That's my point, really.
yeah, so we are beginning to pivot to the delivery phase. The DEFRA is beginning to talk about funding for next year in order to transition from the plan preparation through to delivery. So we're hopeful that there will be a continuation of funding to allow us to begin to funding bids and explore some of these links a bit further.
I've got one other tiny question. Sorry, Chairman.
No, dive in.
We also give teeth in terms of planning enforcement. So if road things happen to precious bits of land that have been identified or ancient trees or woodland, because it's been mapped, will it then give us more mechanism to protect that?
Well,
road developers or
in a word, no. So being mapped in the LNRS doesn't introduce any additional protections to any areas. It doesn't obligate landowners to do anything. So if an area is mapped and the landowner doesn't want to deliver, the woodland creation there, they don't have to. It doesn't stop any other legitimate activities being undertaken on that land. If someone wants to, apply for planning permission for houses. So the existing framework of protections is left as it is. This is about mapping opportunities and trying to incentivise habitat creation or enhancement opportunities at particular locations. If that answers the question.
It does. I've got one more, but I'm going to go back to the room. So dominated too much.
Are you sure you don't want to finish off while you're in?
Well, it's the only, so in terms of BNG as well then, so will there be a mechanism to ensure that local planning applications wash their face in our own region, or will developers still be able to use other schemes in other districts or even other countries to deliver their BNG?
Yeah, so the way that BNG is structured is that developers should be incentivised for locating their BNG either in the same planning area, the same districts, or in the same what's called natural character area. So it doesn't mean that the BNG will be located right next to the development, but it should be in the same general area.
That makes me happy.
But if a developer's really struggling to find anything, they can look further afield. They are effectively
The unitarisation will potentially help that.
That all sounds good. It sounds excellent.
And that's one of the things we've really pushed, actually, because having these opportunities on our doorstep means that when developers do come and have to fulfil their BNG obligations, we can point them to proactively through the pre-planning process sites where we think they could benefit the local area. So it's about ensuring it is on our doorstep as opposed to heading elsewhere.
And the way that the LNRS and BNG relate is in the BNG, without getting too technical, in the BNG metric, there's this strategic significance multiplier. So if BNG is delivered in an area that's mapped in the LNRS, the developer is effectively rewarded by having to deliver slightly less BNG. So that's the incentive for the developer to put their BNG in a place where we think it would make sense, is they effectively have to then deliver a little bit less BNG. So that's how we'll work in theory.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Chairman.
Before I move on to our next speaker, I'd like to do a public announcement. BNG means Biodiversity Net Gain. LNRS means Local Nature Recovery Strategy, and SSI means Site of Scientific Interest. Over to you, Penny.
Well, actually, your questions are mostly I'm going to ask about.
Sorry.
No, it's absolutely fine. No, you asked them. That's me. So the incentivisation is actually the part of the planning, basically. I've forgotten the word, but the money you have to give back to the councils in this case.
So there won't be any money given to the council ordinarily.
Yeah.
The way that the metrics, so the spreadsheet works for biodiversity net gain, yes, the developer is effectively incentivised to put their BNG in an area we've mapped it.
The incentivisation is just they have to buy less land.
They have to deliver fewer what are called biodiversity units. But yes, effectively that equates to the amount of land.
So I think you've kind of possibly answered this question as well, but following from the question for the public health, the same seems to apply here in terms of local government reorganisation. Is this going to be a benefit in this case, having unitary authorities? It seems again that you're going through a series of ups and downs in discussions. And finally, I just wonder why this goes to Nottingham and Nottinghamshire Economic Prosperity Committee. I assume that's a joint committee, rather than this committee when it's finished. The final report, the final.
It goes to cabinet here.
Cabinet
when it's finished. But we are We are talking to the Economic Prosperity Committee because that engages with the leaders and chief executives of all of the districts.
Right.
Who are our supporting authorities. So it's a route for us to take that at a very senior level.
So it was a convenient route, Penny, really, because we had everyone already there. So it was something we could add to the agenda, but absolutely the cabinet here that authorises the final document.
So will this committee see that final document?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We can return with the final document. I think Martin and I tentatively discussed that, so we can ensure it comes before we get to cabinet.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank
you. Councillor Ogle, please.
Yeah, well, when you're doing this, what you do doesn't always have as much benefit as it should, because I'll relate having a conversation last week with a farmer from Laxton. He was telling me that the grass was always cut, I think it was June or July or whatever, on a certain section. And Natural England or whatever, or perhaps some of your staff had come in, and they were cutting the area later. And the thing we're trying to preserve, I think it was going the wrong way, and the ground was getting rougher. And I know, I suspect why you were doing that is to get the seed, but it's been cut earlier. So some of it must have been seeded in the past, and the management wasn't helping that specific area. I've got some other things as well. You can't put a grass strip or any nature stuff next to an SSI. I had a scheme and I got a grass strip next to it. And I've got several types of orchids growing on it. And so I was paid to do that. And then they stopped the scheme and went on to another scheme and said, no, you can't have a grass strip next to the SSI wood.
This is Eton and Gamston woods, is it?
Yeah, and so I just ploughed them up.
Yeah.
Because I can't afford to keep the grass there.
No, I'm not sure what the answer to that is. That does sound a bit daft, I have to say. I mean, obviously the LNRS is taking quite a high level strategic sort of overview, so I guess it's not sort of looking at that level of detail. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, we should be avoiding those sort of sounds slightly nonsensical, computer says no type decisions that get.
Right, taking it further, delivery, enhancement and continuation. So I had the scheme for 10 years and it won the Nottinghamshire award. And so then they said I think it was Natural England, they said they'd like me to do another 5 years. So I signed up for it. So I signed up in January, so they were going to pay me from January, what you paid in arrears. So we got through to August and they said, no, we're not paying you, we're going to start from the next January. So my experience in everything is if things are not going right, cut your losses. I'm not taking the government to court. But basically, they weren't doing what they're supposed to do in regards to continuation. So all those wildflower areas came up.
Yeah, and I mean, it's daft to invest lots of time and money.
So bureaucracy needs targeting. So we're talking about the broad picture here, but the continuation and management, it needs people who know what they're doing and don't think they know what they're doing. That's all.
No, and I mean, in terms of delivering the LNRS, farmers are going to be absolutely critical. And obviously, we're not suggesting that wildflowers, but there are lots of on-farm opportunities. As you say, grass strips, managing hedgerows better, that sort of thing. But from a farm business perspective, absolutely, there's got to be that continuity, hasn't there? So you can plan what you're doing. And again, I'm not sure that the LNRS will have actually much of an influence on that, but it's all part of the picture because it is, it will be so critical to delivering the LNRS. So I think it's useful for us to have those reflections so that when we're having conversations with Natural England about how environmental land management scheme will deliver this, we can reflect on some of those experiences.
So I'll take it a step further because a student from Notts University wants some information. And I often fill those sort of things in to, for them. And he wanted to talk to me about something. We got talking. And he had actually worked there as a student. So that's quite a few years ago now. But the point is, he says he knew what the problem was. They were short of money. And instead of cutting the staff, that cut the schemes.
All comes down to cash.
It doesn't, absolutely. Doesn't it always?
Sadly.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Is there anybody else from the floor before I have a pop? No, I shouldn't say I have a pop. That sounds like I'm going to be unkind to you, doesn't it? Which I've got no plans to be whatsoever, so I don't know why I said that. Yeah, so he's going to do that after this. Yeah. So just in terms of touching on the protections thing was interesting, because what was on my mind was around some of these changes in designation to certain types of land. There's some new policy coming through government at the moment in terms of planning around changing designations of green belt to grey belt and all this sort of specification. So I suppose in my mind about that was how do you fear or feel that's going to impact this the designation of land, in terms of is there a way to feed into government to make these things more stringent, and actually that the LNRS actually becomes a guide to how we should be operating the land, rather than just what effectively is as a map? Is that a thing? I was good to see your drawing of the maps had bars included as well, by the way. I noticed that in the corner. I thought it was quite handy. It did look closed though at the time. Yeah. What else was I going to say? Yeah, one of the things I find difficult in planning. I've been on planning committees in district councils for a number of years, and unless you're a councillor that is borderline with a lot of the natural world, you are, either rural or semi-rural. There's not really an understanding. A deep understanding in the room about the importance of these things. And I suppose my question is, how do we go about ensuring, or how can you go about ensuring that the importance of what the LNRS is surveying and putting into the limelight, if you like, is educated into those councillors that don't have the access to areas? And so when it comes to planning decisions and things like that, the importance of those designated areas is highlighted to them. Is there a way, for example, if we were looking at planning reports in Nottinghamshire County Council where we have allowances for things like climate change at the bottom, is there a point to have on there some sort of line that says under the NRS this land had a potential to X, Y, Z, so that there is a sort of a nudge, if you like, to those councillors when they are reading that to maybe look a little bit deeper than just the actual application on its merits in terms of planning and technicalities, because I fear that these things are very helpful if you have an interest or a appreciation of it. But if you are based in an area that doesn't have as much access to wildlife, I think sometimes that can lead to a misunderstanding and maybe an unappreciation and maybe a lack of protection of potentially some of these things.
So I'll just pick up on that kind of general point about kind of advice and reports, and then
please
policy more technical issues. But it's a timely question. One of the things that we're just in the act of kind of rolling out specifically within the police department, because of course our departmental reports are the ones that perhaps that impact most directly on issues around the environment and sustainability. So our current kind of report writing structures allow officers, report authors, to make mention of matters relating to the environment. But that's not something that has been kind of enforced, for want of a better word, internally. So what we're looking to do with all of our reports in place is significantly strengthen and require report authors to make thorough their consideration of environment and sustainability matters in all reports that we take through to cabinet members and council committees. So what members are likely to see over the coming months is a significant strengthening of our consideration of environmental matters in all of our reports and all of our recommendations, and you're likely to see recommendations being influenced therefore by that consideration, because we're piloting some kind of audit tools within the department, which we're then looking to roll out corporately perhaps in the autumn. And LNRS is absolutely going to be part of the kind of one of the many factors that officers and report authors will need to consider as we develop proposals and bring recommendations forward. So I think in general terms, answering that question, I think that's I think we can offer members some comfort there. But I suspect as far as planning decisions are concerned, there's a technical element to all of that which colleagues will pick up on. I think the other thing to say, and it goes back to your question, Penny, around unitarisation, of course, is as we become or as single planning authorities emerge post local government reorganisation in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire, then again, I think that question of joining up the role of the kind of the strategic planning authority and the local planning authority will clearly become simpler, and that could easily influence the kinds of decisions that are put in front of the successor to our current planning of rights and way committee. But colleagues, if you've got more technical
absolutely. Thanks, Derek. And I think I'd also just add that EMPA are also having an important role with their LNRS going forward. They've got a biodiversity task force group now, and going forward, they will be very much involved with the LNRS. So to help support the delivery and putting money in as well, so which is positive. But I think the LNRS is a really important tool, as we still mentioned before, as part of the planning process. So any consideration, whether it's from local plan policy making or decision making, there will be an ecological element of the planning process. So the report will set out what the impacts are on the ecology, and we'll be hoping as part of that thinking that the LNRS will be mentioned. So it will identify what those priorities are. So it can start to build up that picture where the ecology is and where the priorities and the impacts are essentially. And it will be that very important tool. And we want to promote this widely. Yes, there are areas which are going to be much more sensitive, the priorities. So we need to really start to really understand where we need to focus our energies in where the needs. There are lots of priorities. As part of the LNRS, there are actions. So we'll be monitoring those actions going forward, and we'll be able to identify with those objectives as well, essentially. So we're at the start of the process.
Yeah.
We're just about to start to deliver it. So I think the hard work begins now with all agencies essentially doing this.
There's a bit of a connectivity with the early rights away as well. So one of the priorities is connectivity of those green spaces and those biodiversity areas across the county. So rights away, particularly some of those greenway routes that Neil touched on in his previous presentation. So you start to get a real interactive plan of what the county looks like and how we can protect to make sure we don't sever some of those green links as well. So as Dave says, early stages, but I think if we keep reporting back, because although the statutory requirement is between up to 10 years for reporting back, I think internally we're wanting to do that on a much more frequent basis and keep members informed of progress and how we think we're working to some of those objectives. So we can certainly do an annual report that's circulated and presented, which I think will help. Because some of the comments today, I can see it's kind of how is this going to be tangible? So at least we can then present that in a way that hopefully informs members of how it is getting delivered and what we are seeing on the ground.
Yeah, and I also wonder in terms of the national planning policy framework, if we're going to be able to, because there's a discussion at the moment whether there was a report came out this week that councillors aren't going to be able to have an impact on certain planning decisions, especially the ones that are more bigger and strategic. And I think if there's any way we can feed in the process to ensure that the LNRS carries heavy weight in those decisions, because the fear for me is, again, if you lose the ability to comment on those things, and it's those important spaces that give people that freedom, and they love to walk. Matt mentioned it; they love to walk around, and we all many of us enjoy that. And I would hate to think that wasn't being represented as potentially we do move to a less localised planning authority and more of a regional planning authority. Having the LNRS interject with that is really, I think, important to make sure that is kept up and that we don't lose those spaces. So yeah, how we increase the weight, if there's any way you can feed in, I don't know how that works, but
I think with the and again David will come in, but the the planning policy reforms. I think because we're going through that process now, we've obviously got the spatial plan aligned to MCA. They've got the biodiversity task force. We've got the LGR work. So there's lots of moving parts.
Yeah.
This is high profile. And part of our job, I think, over the next 6 months certainly, is to make sure it is embedded right at the top priority list in all those processes. So we don't have scenarios like that unfolding, Mike. And at the minute, the messaging is all consistent. Everyone's committed. We just need to make sure that from a Nottinghamshire angle, it's very much front and centre.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. Has anybody got anything to add? Yes, Nick.
I was just going to say that the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act actually places a duty on planning authorities to take account of the relevant LNRS. So I would fully expect that committee reports will be required to have, a paragraph saying how this planning decision interrelates with the LNRS.
Good. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. That's positive and helps me sleep a little bit better at night now. We're not going to be concreting over everything that I like. Thank you very much. So yes, just on that then, Martin, do you want to?
Yeah.
Quick reminder.
Quick reminder. No, that was really interesting. So we'll share the link from the video with members. We'll agree that committee gets to see the final draft before it goes to cabinet. So you can do that. Might have to fit the meetings around to make it work. So obviously we're not quite sure when that will be. And then we'll consider that how you receive progress reports when it's actually up and running, how you'd like to do that. They're all quite flexible really, but we'll have that as part of that work programming process in June.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. To take a vote, please. So show of hands, please. All those in favour? Yeah, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Oh, so it's a typo. Even I make a mistake.
Not as many as me though. Thank you very much. I just before we dive into the work programme, before I close the meeting, I just want to have a moment to thank everybody that's been a member of this committee, everybody that's been involved, all the work parties and things like that you've got involved in to try and improve processes and the ability of this council to scrutinise itself. I think we've done some good work this year. I think we've dealt with some quite difficult things at times, but I think it's been worthwhile work, and all of your comments have been important to that process. Specifically, I'd like to thank the previous chair, Nigel Moxon, as well for his work, which I happily took over from him, but also Jim for the shortest job in politics, I think it's fair to say. The best chair.
Good one.
Yeah, that's it. Best deputy. And also specifically to Martin, who does a ridiculous amount of work to put these things together, these reports together, and is always available for conversation, and very happy to dig me out of the occasional moment when I forget what I'm doing, which can happen quite often. So yeah, very much appreciate your work. Thank you for that. And also obviously to Catherine previously, and to yourself, Dom, as well, for your work too. And for all of your help along the way. Thank you very much, all of you. Hopefully I'll see you after May, you never know. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, thanks ever so much for all the work you do. And as I said, the nature side of things is incredibly important to me. And long may our ability to protect it continue. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Right, so that's it then.
Just the work programme. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to follow that really.
Hey? Well, that is technically the meeting closed. Yeah, we've got to do the work programme before you run off.
Yes.
Work programme. Potentially none of us are going to be involved. No, sorry, but it's going to be.
I was just going to say. Well, we can make sure the next committee works.
Yeah, let's give them what we're going to put on there.
Yeah, it's just that the work programme is there, and obviously how, with the change of governance, how the work programme has gone. We do have actually items set up for the first meeting after the election, but there will be meetings in June where we'll do the same as we did last year. Members come together, hear what's happening, make suggestions, and then we might work to formulate the work programme. So it is there, but like I say, it may change. So look forward to working with whoever is back.
Brilliant.
After
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
Martin, you just alluded to the fact that things may change. Can I ask, please, this 20 mile an hour speed limit consideration does not change. I represent 23 villages. They're all chasing me for 20 mile an hour signs. I have promised them that I've seen it on the 16th of July. I will be victimised if that comes off.
We'll definitely keep it.
Right. And I will be devastated if it turns out. Personally.
Pardon?
I would be personally devastated.
Oh, right.
That's wonderful. We can thank you very much, everybody. We'll close the meeting. I think I've already stopped the broadcast.